set, go. ZD3.
And action. Hello everybody, welcome to Home Movies. Today we are talking about tomato sauce. And this is not a tomato sauce that you're buying, this is a tomato sauce that you're making. And we are doing it in like this is your gold standard. This is your all-purpose, this is the sauce that you're gonna have when it's pizza night, when it's pasta night, when it's baked pasta night. If you're making baked eggs in the morning, you can do a million things with this tomato sauce. We're gonna make a baked ziti inspired baked pasta. We're not gonna use ziti, but there'll be cheese, there'll be sauce, there'll be pasta, and we're gonna bake it. Nothing more fun than a baked shell. I'm not gonna stuff them individually, don't worry. But the long and short of it is if you can open up a can, you can do this.
This is pantry tomato, take one, Mark.
Good. Oh wait, this lady wants to come in.
Okay, cool.
Okay, ready?
Let's do it.
I like tomatoes about 2 times a year. I like them in August and I like them in September. Or let's say I like them from like mid-July to mid-September. That's when the tomatoes are good and that's when I eat tomatoes. Canned tomatoes, I eat all the time. I eat 365 year-round, anytime, any place, anywhere. They are not a substitute for fresh tomatoes. And fresh tomatoes are not a substitute for canned tomatoes. They are 2 very, very different products. In my pantry at all times, I have at least 3 canned tomato products because they all behave really differently. I believe in a peeled whole plum tomato. This is my #1 choice because you can always control the texture. You cannot control the texture of something that's already been crushed or pureed. But with these, I like to crush them in my hands. I like to control the viscosity. I like thicker bits, more chunky bits, especially with things like tomato sauce, which is such a deeply personal textural experience. I think starting with at least half whole plum tomatoes is such a good idea. The second one that I kind of always have on hand for things like this pasta that we're gonna make is crushed tomato. And that's because this is gonna be thicker, it's gonna give your sauce a little body. Having this combined with like whole crushed tomatoes by hand is to me the ideal texture. But this is really nice also if you're like doing just classic marinara sauce, crushed tomatoes I think are the way to go. And then tomato paste. This is a really versatile product. You can use like a few tablespoons when you're braising short ribs. You can do something like shallot pasta and have that really high acid concentrated tomato flavor, but with no actual tomato in it. It is a really awesome condiment. So I feel my safest and most secure when I have all 3 of these in my pantry because I know I can go in like a lot of different directions. And so for today, I'm gonna use a mixture of the whole peeled plum and the crushed because I think that together they make the best texture for like your all-purpose tomato sauce. For anything from like a baked pasta like we're doing today to pizza to lasagna to meatballs, it kind of just like gets you there. So when in doubt, I feel like a mixture of these 2 are the way to go.
Okay. All right. Eric, you want to get that?
I think this is your copy.
Thank you. Thank you.
We interrupt this episode of Home Movies to bring you a thank you from our sponsor. Thank you, Brooklinen. I recently got Brooklinen sheets because my husband is a hot sleeper and he needed to have sheets that were like breathable, but I was like, well, I'm not gonna buy sheets just for you because we sleep in the same bed. And I'm pleased to report that Brooklinen accomplished all of our goals as a family. 1 sheet, 2 problems, everybody's happy. And the fact that you spend up to a third of your life in bed, it would be more if it were up to me, means that it's very, very important that whatever it is that you're sleeping in be like the most comfortable and aesthetically pleasing as possible. Brooklinen just celebrated their 10th year anniversary, which I think is a real testament because I don't think that you can last that long in any industry unless your product is actually really good. It's farm land. Right now, Brooklinen is having their anniversary sale because what better way to celebrate their anniversary by saving you money and giving you 20% off on the site. You don't need a code. This is only until May 6th, so if you do happen to miss the sale, you can enter the code Alison with 1 L, Alison20 at checkout and get $20 off your order of $100 or more, which if you're buying the bundle, which you probably should, is like you're already hitting the $100, so it's really $80, and I think that's great. Spooky. Sexy 90s thriller over here. These are pretty small onions. I would say that this is like a normal onion and this is a normal onion. So let's call it 2 large onions or 4 small onions or whatever. 12 to 16 ounces is good. That's 3/4 to a pound. When it comes to garlic, I like a lot of it. These are also very small garlics. So let's call it 8 to 10 cloves of garlic. You don't need to bust out a food processor for this. Doing like knife work like this is actually the thing that trips people up in cooking, and it's the thing they hate the most, but I also think it's like the most worthwhile to do. My husband made me meatballs the other night and it took him almost 5 hours. And it's because he doesn't cook often. That's not to like throw him under the bus. It was so sweet and like such a wonderful gesture, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. But it's the knife work that's taking him that long. That said, if you know that chopping this onion and peeling and chopping this garlic is gonna take you the longest, just buckle in. Say, I'm here, I'm in the moment, I'm cooking. Clear your calendar. This is just a lot of like busy work, and I don't actually have that much to say. I could fill the time. We don't need to fill the silence. What's wrong with a little silence? Why is everyone trying to fill the space? It's not awkward when you're with your friends. It's awkward now though, I'll tell you that. Boy, a way to make something feel like an eternity is by having people watch you. It also makes me feel inept. Speaking of inept, anyone play Connections in this room? I'm committed to the painful realities of cooking and showing you what it's like. But after this, we are moving. If you thought that was thrilling, wait till you see me dice an onion. Don't worry about getting this too fine. You're still gonna see bits of onion. You're looking for about 1/4 inch. Garlic, you can chop, you can slice. I like to slice the garlic. Okay, Leonard disagrees. Why do you feel that way? Wow, we're done. We made it, guys. I'm gonna start with about 1/4 cup of olive oil, which may seem like a lot, but it's really not in the grand scheme of things. Scheme? The grand scheme of things? Scheme? Why did I do that? Weird. Language is hard. Tomatoes need a lot of fat to sort of cut the acidity behind them. That's why in the famous Marcella Hazan tomato sauce, there's a knob of butter. The butter, the dairy sort of mitigates the acidity of the tomatoes, which makes it sort of like creamy feeling. That's a beautiful sauce, and I think you could add butter to this if you wanted, but I think as a base recipe for things like pizza, baked pastas, I just don't think it needs it if you use enough olive oil. The onions do cook down, and what they end up doing is add like a sweetness to the sauce. Another version of this that I've done is use like half fennel bulb, half onion, which cuts down on like the onioniness, but adds a good sweetness and body. But you'll see how much onion it looks like is in this pot right now. It cooks down so much. And we're not looking to caramelize, we're not looking to brown, but we are looking to sweat. And this is just getting seasoned with salt and pepper. If you wanted to add something like a crushed red pepper flake or a fennel seed, you would do that as the onions sort of get cooked a little bit further. Adding any sort of spice now, they're not gonna really toast because everything in here is steaming and there's like a lot of water and moisture happening in here. So you wanna wait till your vegetables are pretty dry so that they effectively toast in the fat. All right, I'm gonna turn this down a little bit. I'm gonna go to medium. So our tomatoes, they always package them with like 1 basil leaf. Get out of here with your 1 basil leaf. I did just get a whiff of basil. Maybe it is doing something after all. I'm wrong. If you want a hyper tomatoey tomato sauce, if you're like, give me that tomato energy, you can always do something like add tomato paste, and now is the time you would do it. Now is also the time you would add anchovies. Now is also the time you would add chili flake, fennel seed, any other sort of toasted spice vibe. We're keeping this one pretty simple because we're gonna bake it with pasta and a bunch of cheese, and I hate anchovies and cheese together. And this isn't the time and place for fennel. And we ate a lot of spicy food last night. So I'm gonna keep this one classico. Some tomato sauces will only call for tomatoes and never any onions or garlic, or maybe just garlic. I think that those recipes are great. I also think that they're really hyper dependent on the quality of tomato that you're using. I think that this is a really nice quality tomato for the price. This isn't like the highest level that you can seek out, but it's pretty good, and it's available all around the USA. It's the one that I've landed on as being the most consistent and a good standard for what a tomato product should be like. You don't need to cook this forever. I'm gonna add a little bit of water because as it cooks, it's gonna reduce, and I don't really want it much thicker than this, to be honest. It may seem counterintuitive to add water to something if you're only gonna remove the water by cooking it out, but it does give everything the opportunity to kind of get to know each other. And by the time all that water that I added evaporates, you're back to that perfect texture. Salting it from the beginning is a really good idea. So I'm gonna let that go. But we'll see you in like a half hour.
Sure, $1 million.
Recycle. Okay, this has been going for half hour-ish. You'll see like tiny bubbles appear every now and then. My friend Lauren calls these champagne bubbles. And that's kind of all you're looking for. You can see that it's reduced by about the same amount of water that I added in that can, kind of back to its original thickness. But when you taste it, the flavor is just a lot more refined. Everything is kind of like melted into each other. It doesn't feel like tomato followed by onion. It's sort of just like seasoned tomato sauce. It's perfect. So I'm gonna kill the heat. That's like your batch. And this, depending on how you're using it, can feed a lot of people. So double it, triple it if you have a big pot. Like, I don't know. This to me is just like a nice size batch for your tomato sauce. This would make 2 quarts, 2.5 quarts. Anyway, all right, I'm gonna boil some water for our pasta, and then I'm gonna grab my cheese because while this isn't like official baked ziti, this is baked ziti-ish, but at its core, it's pasta, it's cheese, it's sauce. You toss it together, you throw it in the oven, you bake it, the top gets crispy, it's delicious, everybody's happy. I'm gonna be using a combination of 3 cheeses, mozzarella, ricotta, and Parmesan. You could use pecorino, and a little heavy cream. The heavy cream is there just because otherwise I find the ricotta tends to break. Anytime I'm baking with ricotta for savory food, I add heavy cream in it to prevent it from splitting. It is just a really nice trick. It does it every time. Your ricotta, it's full fat, always. I will never ask anyone to buy dairy that isn't full fat. That's 8 ounces. Let's call it 2 tablespoons of heavy cream. It is enough to sort of save your ricotta from the experience of curdling inside your baked pasta. I'm gonna season it with salt and pepper. I went to La Calle one time in my life. I'm desperate to go back. And I did have the calzone. And I think what made it so good is that there was a little grated garlic in it. And maybe there's not, and I'm just like imagining this to be true. But as a result, I like to add a little grated garlic into my ricotta. If you don't like garlic or you're sensitive to raw garlic, you can leave this out. But this is to give yourself like a little sauciness, which we all deserve. I'm just waiting for my pasta water to come to a boil, which it almost is, by the way. I just want to point out that I put this water on to boil, what, 4 minutes ago? If that. Tell me you've ever boiled pasta water in 4 minutes on a gas stove. You don't, it can't. It doesn't happen. I'm gonna grab my baking dish, but know that you could use anything. You could use a cast iron skillet, you could use a cake pan, you could use a baking dish. I've done all of the above with great success, but I do have a baking dish, shockingly, so I'm gonna use that. This is a mozzarella ball. Holy shit. Oh, it's fresh. It's from Caputo's. Thanks, Caputo's. So much like the ricotta is always full fat, the mozzarella should always be salted. You can grate this on a box grater if this is not your style. I can't imagine whose style it wouldn't be. Pulling cheese apart with your hands is a joy and something we should all experience at least once in our life. But what I do not want is I do not want you to use pre-shredded mozzarella cheese because there are other things on that cheese that I don't want in my baked pasta. It's like caking agent, anti-caking agents and blah, blah, blah. I don't want it. Wow, we're boiling. This could be a ziti, this could be a rigatoni, this could be a penne if you must. Any sort of like tubular, big chunky shape that's gonna be good for baking in a dish. So I wouldn't do a noodle. Like I wouldn't do like a spaghetti or a bucatini. I can't imagine the visual alone is enough. No. And like all our pasta, we're gonna cook this till al dente because it's going to finish cooking in the oven in the sauce. Meanwhile, I'm gonna gather some stuff for the salad, which again, this can be anything. I just love salad. What can I say? It's my favorite thing on the table almost every time. But when I'm eating things that are heavier, especially something that's like a big pasta with cheese, I do want something like fun and zippy on the side. And because this pasta is on the simpler side, it's a really good opportunity to do something that has like a bit more something going on. So I'm gonna do like bitter greens and citrus, which is like a classic combo, obviously. So for this salad, I'm gonna do like a good amount of bitter greens. And this can be like an endive, it can be a radicchio. This is a treviso. This, I don't know what it is. It is a radicchio, but it's like a special radicchio. And this is called Castelfranco. And they're all members of the same family, all members of like the bitter greens community. Wow, made it 3 years and I've never said the word community on the show. There's a first time for everything. I hear bitter greens, I think citrus, I think olive, I think fennel, I think Parmesan, I think anchovy. I think our pasta's done. All right, so we have our pound of pasta. We have our sauce, we have our cheese. We have our oven, it's preheated to 425. That is hot. I'm not trying to bake this for an eternity. I'm trying to bake it so that the top gets really nice and brown. So the first thing I'll do is sauce the pasta. And this is to kind of just properly, for lack of a better word, lubricate each noodle. Let's call it 2 cups of sauce. Shells like to spoon one another. You want to make sure that the noodles are an individual. Making sure that the sauce gets in all the crannies feels very important to me on a personal level. So I'm gonna put in like 1/3 of the noodles. It should be saucy. And now that they're all like in an even layer, it's a good opportunity to like fill them individually with sauce. And now we're gonna do a little ricotta, a little mozzarella, a little bit of Parmesan in each layer. All right, another layer of pasta. I like a little pepper at the end. It's nice. I'm gonna put a little foil down to save myself the trouble later of cleaning up. It already looks very good. Don't press down because as the cheese melts, you don't want it to stick to the foil. It might anyway, but do what you can to avoid that happening. So I'm gonna throw this in with the foil at 425 degrees for about 20 minutes. Then I'm gonna take the foil off and give it another 20-ish minutes. So first bake, cook it through, second bake, brown it. And meanwhile, we can make our little salad, and then when that comes out, we can eat it. It is nice just to kind of arrange leaves on a plate, squeeze some juice over it, salt, pepper, olive oil, citrus, repeat. Not everything needs to be dressed in a bowl. You can dress it on the plate. You need a lot of other things like saltiness and fattiness and savoriness to kind of counter some of the other bitter, tangy, tart energies. If your citrus is giving like only sweet, then it might be a good idea to add something like vinegar or a lemon in between. You could add chives, scallion, thinly sliced onion or shallot. I'm gonna do a tiny red onion that looks like a shallot, but I know that it's a red onion. I'm a big fan of raw onion in salad. If that's a flavor that like tends to bother you, you can always do something like rinse the onion in ice water, and that'll take off a considerable amount of oniony bite. And then just sort of like alternating. But again, this can also just be endive, this can be escarole, it doesn't have to be pink lettuce. I'm not gonna debase my salad by saying this is like making nachos, but it's sort of like making nachos. All right, so that's ready to go. It's been 20 minutes, I'm taking the foil off. All right. You wanna be delicate in case any cheese did stick to the top, you don't wanna yank it off. God forbid you lose a cheese. Ooh. On further reflection, maybe I filled this a little too full, but I don't have any regrets. I'm going to put this back in for another 20 minutes. It's been 20 minutes since our last 20 minutes. Oof. She means it. She is bubbling. This needs to sit for like 10 to 20 minutes. It will stay hot. Like you could go in on it now, but someone's gonna hurt themselves, someone's gonna burn themselves, either their mouth, their hand. I know this because that is me, that has been me. Learn from my mistakes. But you notice that like all the top bits here are like beautifully browned. Things are bubbling, the cheese is melted. Yeah, this is effectively what you're looking for. If it's been 20 minutes and your pasta doesn't look like this, maybe your oven's running a little low, maybe you wanna bump up the heat, keep going for like another 5-10 minutes, just until like you get that nicely golden brown top, because that really is adding a lot also to the flavor and like the overall energy of the pasta. Your salad's made, light some candles, pour some wine, take a load off. It's Saturday. Saturdays for lovers, Saturdays for baked pasta. That's what this is for.
All right, that's a wrap.
Sorry, I was gonna ask if we could do
Oh.
one thing.
Oh, never mind.